Peace. God's peace be upon you. Thank you so much for joining us again today here at the Reimagined Schools. My name is Suwiya Salih, and I am the CEO and founder of the Reimagined Schools. Today, I want to discuss with you a story that I saw online that is absolutely outrageous. It is so beyond, it is so ridiculous that if I didn't see this story myself, I wouldn't have believed that this is what's taking place. Some of you are familiar with the story of Sarah Sims. Sarah Sims is the parent of a fourth grader who attends Ocean View Elementary School in Norfolk Public Schools in Norfolk, Virginia. Please excuse me if I'm mispronouncing Norfolk the incorrect way, but I'm going to just go with that because that's not the focus of this story. Miss Sims alleges that her daughter has been being bullied and that she has reached out to the school administration to discuss her concerns to see if they could help support her and her daughter, but that all of her phone calls and her emails have gone unresponded to. For those of you who are following me on the Reimagined Schools and you have subscribed to my blog, you will remember that I actually wrote a blog about the poor communication that sometimes takes place in our schools. It's called It's the Little Things, Like Phone Calls. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, please make sure that you go to the website and or to Twitter or Facebook to be able to read that blog, because this is the problem that Miss Sims had, which provoked her to begin to take matters into her own hands and to do what she thought any parent who was concerned would do about their child being bullied. So I want to take a moment for you to take a look at the video, the actual interview that was done, and hear from Miss Sims herself. I'm going to come back and give you my opinion and my thoughts about this incident. And of course, I'm looking forward to hearing your comments in the comments section below. Please share this story because it's so outrageous and so unbelievable that a school district took the steps that they took towards this parent. That is something that we really have to take a look at. We really have to feel the outrage, because it could be any of us who try to stand up and do what is best for our children with the information that we have, and to be treated the way she was treated and the response that she got. No way in the world that should have happened. So take a moment to take a look at the video, and then we'll come back to talk about this. Okay.
Only on 10, a Norfolk mother faces felony charges.
And she says it was over trying to find out if her daughter is being bullied. This all took place at Ocean View Elementary School. She's accused of using a recording device to find out if her child's teacher is ignoring the situation. Then at your side's Jason Marks has exclusive details, so you can judge for yourself, Jason.
And guys, I don't think anyone's questioning whether Sarah Sims sent her daughter to school with that recorder. The bigger question is, why was Sims charged, and why has she not still had a conversation with school officials?
They aren't making this about the child and what's happening in that classroom.
In a small Virginia Beach room, an attorney and her client are trying to figure out how felony charges were brought up in Norfolk.
These are charges that carry jail time.
The center of the investigation is Sarah Sims, a single mother just days from getting her college degree. She was charged after sending a recording device with her 9-year-old daughter to school.
I try to be fair, but it's not fair. There's nothing fair about this.
Sims says her 4th grade daughter's bullied at Ocean View Elementary. After repeated attempts to contact the school with no answers, Sims put the recorder in her daughter's backpack in hopes of catching something wrong at the school. The recorder was found, and a month later, Sims found herself in jail.
So if I'm not getting an answer from you, then what am I left to do?
Norfolk School says it can't comment on the case because the investigation is still pending. They did tell us no electronics are allowed in elementary schools.
The things that bothered me the most, I have yet to get a response from anyone in the administration.
Sims' attorney says the two charges, wiretapping and contributing to delinquency of a minor, are a stretch. She believes neither will hold up in court.
We're at the very early stages of this, but even at the very early stages, I think the community needs to know that this is happening, because any parent out there who is sending their child to school now could be at risk for something that has happened to Sarah.
Now, Sims' inner attorneys say they have not had a chance to hear what that recording or what was on that. They have not had that yet. The 9-year-old has been moved to another classroom. Sims will be back in court in January for a preliminary hearing. In the newsroom, Jason Marks, 10 on your side.
That's simply unbelievable. Unbelievable. I cannot believe that. Okay, so just to recap, Miss Sarah Sims, who has a 4th grader at the Ocean View Elementary School in the Norfolk Public School System, alleges that her daughter has been bullied, and that she sent emails and she made phone calls to bring this to the attention of the school administration. And she alleges that the school administration provided her with no response, no assistance, no support. It's interesting to note that that news story aired on November 21st, 2017, and Miss Sims says she still has not heard from the school administration as of that date, which is absolutely outrageous. Because she didn't hear from the school administration, and it sounds like she was getting desperate because her daughter was continuously being bullied, that she placed a digital recorder in her daughter's book bag to help, in the hopes that she would capture some of this mistreatment that her daughter was describing on tape, so that she'll be able to say to the school district, this is what's going on. What are you going to do about it? How can you help me? Somehow the recorder was discovered. Now, I haven't found any information online about how the recorder was discovered, and certainly I would be interested to know from the school district how they actually discovered the recorder that was in her book bag. Presumably the book bag would have been closed. I'm not sure, but I would love to hear the story about how they discovered this recorder in the book bag. They confiscated the recorder, and the daughter was moved to another classroom. Interesting. About a month after that, now that was in September, according to Miss Sims. About a month later, she said that she was charged by the police with felony use of a device to intercept oral communication. Sounds like wiretapping to me. My legal eagles, my lawyers, you can chime in to give further information for those of us who just have a basic understanding of the law. But it sounds like wiretapping to me. Miss Sims was charged by the police with felony use of a device to intercept oral communication. And as if though that wasn't enough, the parent who was trying to protect her daughter was also charged with a misdemeanor contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The good parent is now being labeled as the bad parent because you are contributing to the delinquency of a minor. In what way? By trying to protect her from being bullied? I simply just cannot believe Norfolk Public School System. I can't believe you. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. It's actually egregious. Outstandingly bad. And I want to say to you, really? Because the felony charge could carry 5 years in prison. The felony charge of the use of a device to intercept oral communication could carry 5 years in prison. Really? Really, Norfolk Public School Systems? I need you to make a statement. Someone come with a spokesperson to explain this, because this is absolutely outrageous. Now, when the reporters asked the school district about the case, of course, they stated that they couldn't comment because the case was under investigation. However, reporters were told that in elementary schools, no electronic devices are allowed. So someone from the school district stated that they couldn't make a comment, but that in the district that electronic devices are not allowed in elementary schools. Now let's talk about this. And then I want to come back to the comment about the electronic devices that the reporters were told. So put a pin in that, because I'm going to come back to that. Now, I want to tell you that I don't know Miss Sarah Sims, never met her. I just simply saw the story online. So I'm not here to, tell a story in her favor because I know her personally. I don't know her. I just saw her story online. I also don't know the superintendent or any of the school administrators or anyone, for that matter, that I'm aware of that work at Norfolk Public Schools. But I have to tell you that if I were consulting with them, if they asked me my opinion about this course of action, I would have absolutely advised them against this course of action. This was a terrible mistake. It was a very poor choice of judgment in this instance. When you really sit down and think about what Miss Sims' intentions were, I didn't get the sense that her intentions were to do something to harm the school. I mean, what exactly is it that the school has to hide? That they had such extreme, to me, reaction to this particular incident. It doesn't look good on the part of the school. And I have to say to you, you have to also consider NPS. I'm going to refer to you as NPS. That's Norfolk Public Schools. You have to look at how your community has responded to this story. I have looked at all kinds of articles online, and I also looked at the comments to get a feel for what the people in your community and also all over the country have had to say about this story. And I have to tell you, they are overwhelmingly in support of Miss Sims. Many of them stating that they would have done the same thing. I just got to ask you, who thought this was a good idea? Whose idea was this? Who thought this was a good idea? Because whoever presented this as the recourse, a course of action for Miss Sims, towards Miss Sims, whoever presented this as the recourse, their intentions have to be questioned. Because the question that I have, and I think probably a lot of other people may be asking this question, what exactly is it that you wanted Miss Sims to learn about you, Norfolk Public Schools, by doing this? What exactly is it that she was supposed to learn? Is she supposed to know, don't you ever go outside of us? How dare you have the audacity to go around us? Is that what she's supposed to learn? Was she supposed to learn where her place was? Is this a lesson in let me tell you what your place is so that you'll never forget? Because obviously you're confused and you stepped out of your place and I need to put you back in your place. Is that what this is about? Because I need someone who was privy to this decision making to explain this, not just to me, but to your community, to the nation who was absolutely outraged at your action. What message did you convey to Miss Sims about what her place was by this action? And by comparison and by proxy, what message are the parents of students in Norfolk Public Schools supposed to get because of this action? It seems like you're trying to use Miss Sims as an example to others. And whenever someone wants to use a person as an example for others, they always usually go to the most extreme. They're the most extreme in their response and in their consequence because they want to make sure to try to hurt that person. And in hurting that person, others will see that example and they will be afraid and retreat from whatever they may have been contemplating. And rather than the Norfolk Public Schools sending a message to Miss Sims and the other parents in the community that somewhere down the way, the lines of communication were broken, and you just want to repair it and regain the trust that parents and Miss Sims should have in you, rather than do that, you would rather Miss Sims and others in your community know not to go against you. Don't you go against me. Don't you go behind my back. Don't you go around me, or else we might press charges against you and try to ruin your reputation and put you in jail. That's what you would rather Miss Sims and the others in your community know? Wow. Way to fail, Norfolk Public Schools. That's a fail all day long. Way to fail. See, now all you have to do now is change your mission statement and your strategic plan. Now, your mission statement on your school district's documentation states that the mission of Norfolk Public Schools, the cornerstone of a proudly diverse community, is to ensure that all students maximize their academic potential, develop skills for lifelong learning, and are successful contributors to a global society, as distinguished by courageous advocacy for all students. I don't know that Miss Sims would say that you were advocating for her daughter when she reached out to the school district to let them know that her daughter was being bullied and no one responded. I don't think she would say that. You also say that you are distinguished by family and community investment. It's the way to support families and build community by threatening to put parents in jail because they reached out to try to do something to help their child in an act of desperation when they got no help from you? Is that how you build family and community investment? Of course, you go on to talk about your data-driven personalized learning, your strong and effective leadership teams, your shared responsibility for teaching and learning, and your access to rigorous and rewarding college and career readiness opportunities. That is what you say your mission is. Now, if we take a look at your strategic plan, here, let's see. Your strategic plan, which is the district's 5-year focus, basically. It's your 5-year strategic plan. You say in your strategic plan that your parameters or your guidelines or self-imposed rules, that you will honor the worth and integrity of each person. Of each person. We will respect community input. You go on to say that your community beliefs are that we believe that every person is worthy of respect. I have to tell you that I don't believe that you're showing respect to Miss Sims right now by having her charged with a felony and a misdemeanor for trying to protect and help her daughter. I don't know about that. You say that you believe that family is a critical factor in the development of the individual, and you're absolutely right about that. But it has to be more than words on a paper. Your actions and your deeds have to show that you actually support that and do that. And by trying to have a parent placed in jail because of something that she did that maybe she didn't even know was something she shouldn't have done, I don't think that you're showing that family is critical in that sense. I don't believe that. You talk about your belief that diversity is a strength. You go on to say that we believe that fostering positive and meaningful relationships is essential to helping students reach their highest potential. And I absolutely agree with you. And the Reimagined Schools that I founded believes that deeply, that it's about relationships. It's about collaboration. It's about partnership. But we don't believe in placing parents in jail for just trying to be for just trying to be a parent, excuse me. I mean, we're not putting mamas in jails for being mamas, and we don't support that. And so we have to let you know that we wholeheartedly don't agree with that policy that you have. It's not right. Okay. Let's see here. Right now, Norfolk Public Schools, you really have made yourself look like the big bad bully that's picking on the helpless victim. That's what you look like right now. You have made yourself look like you are heartless, that you are vengeful, that there's some guilt there, that you are petty, that you lack concern, and that you have people in your district who are poor decision makers? Is that really the way you wish to portray yourself? I mean, because I just can't believe that any school district would set out to put themselves in such a position that not only are they looking in a bad way in their own community, but the story has reached all around the world, and people are commenting about how outraged they are that a parent would have to endure this for simply being a parent. In any other place in the world, what Miss Sims did would resound as someone who was trying to help her daughter. She would not be vilified and made to be criminalized for doing that. And you can't help build community and support families when parents have to be worried about if that's how you're going to try to portray them. Okay? This is not the way you wish to portray yourself. But then I ask myself this question, and I hope that other people have too. Is it possible that this is an isolated incident, that Norfolk Public Schools just maybe lost their mind for a moment? Or is this negativity a part of their pattern? Is it something that you can look online and look in the newspaper and see that they have a pattern of negative interactions? So surely, Norfolk Public Schools, you haven't had any other negative interactions with parents in the community, right? That's right, right? So I went online to take a look, really hoping that I didn't find anything that could be considered negative. But I ran across an article that left me equally stunned, as stunned as I was concerning Miss Sims' story. Now, this story appears in the Virginia Pilot. The title is "The State Confirms Norfolk Schools Recycled Students to Boost SOL Scores and Tells Division to Stop." So let's take a look at that. We see that Booker T. Washington High School is fully accredited. But the article states, Norfolk Public Schools improperly changed the class schedules of struggling students to prevent them from taking standards of learning exams, a state report said, confirming the findings of a Virginian pilot investigation last year into the practice of recycling. All 5 city high schools were removing students from the state-mandated testing pool because they would likely perform poorly, creating confusion, staffing problems, and challenges to on-time graduation, the Department of Education concluded this month. The division was ordered to come up with a plan to correct its behavior and account for all students required to take the test last year. Superintendent Melinda Boone addressed the findings at a school board workshop Wednesday and said the division had begun taking steps in the right direction prior to the state's final report. She's quoted as saying, "Hopefully now the pall can be lifted as to whether or not our scores are reflective of student performance without any gimmicks," she said. When asked by the pilot last year about what is widely referred to as recycling, newly hired Boone and other officials said that Norfolk's practices were used only to sharpen students' skills, not to inflate test scores. But the report cites a state accreditation regulation that requires all middle and high school students to take applicable end-of-course SOL exams, standards of learning exams. The August 4th report, made public ahead of Wednesday's board meeting only through a Freedom of Information Act request, stems from a February state investigation into alleged special education shortcomings at Booker T. Washington High School. The Education Department found that the division violated state and federal special education regulations at the school, prompting a systemic complaint about recycling that included the city's 4 other public high schools. The department began looking into Booker T's policies and practices after seeing the school's significant year-over-year SOL improvements in the pilot's September 2016 article on recycling, according to the February report. The state denied the pilot's request last year for class scheduling data, citing the privacy of students. Booker T's pass rates in math, science, and history, social science improved by at least 25 percentage points during the 2014-2015 school year, according to other state data, earning the high school full accreditation a year after it was the only one in Virginia to be denied. Boone said Tuesday that the findings reflect practices employed by a previous administrator and that the division is working to ensure students are not improperly moved from classes. We continue to work toward district-wide improvement, she said in a written statement. Having a sound understanding of where we are and where we have to go is vital to any district's turnaround efforts. After the pilot raised the recycling issue in September, City Council members criticized the report during a meeting with Boone and the school board. Tommy Smeagol, I believe that's how you say that, also the principal at the academy, but Discovery at Lakewood, said the article was missing a lot of information and unfairly targeted Norfolk schools. He goes on to say, and I quote, "We spent a lot of time on the agenda today talking about an issue that is not an issue." Councilman Martin Thomas added, that's actually Councilman Martin Thomas who said that. He said that the controversy was based on a poorly written, poorly researched article and that recycling is actually something that's good for the students. But the state found otherwise. The special education investigation centered on allegations that students with disabilities did not receive an equal opportunity to earn a standard or advanced studies diploma. Through interviews with central office staff and Booker T employees, state investigators found that school staff members were asked to submit lists of low-performing students to their department chairs via an Excel spreadsheet. The lists were then used to move students to non-SOL classes, the report said. These changes typically occurred without input from students or parents, investigators wrote. Consideration was given if parents objected to the moves. One teacher said she learned about schedule changes only after they happened. Another raised concerns about the failure to inform special education case managers. Investigators found a lack of uniform understanding of state and federal regulations for students with disabilities. Some faculty and staff believe that moving students in this manner is a long-standing practice in all Norfolk City high schools, the report said. School employees told targeted seniors they did not need to take SOL exams because they had met all their graduation requirements, the report said. Booker T staffers told investigators that some students with failing course grades were turned away from testing or were told by their teachers not to take the SOL test, investigators wrote in the August report. In the complaint targeting the city's other public high schools, filed later in February, the Education Department wrote that it had received tips from division employees that recycling was a systemic problem. The state outlined 9 allegations, including that the division denied a free and appropriate education to high school students with disabilities, that parents were not notified before schedule changes happened, and that meetings were not held to determine how the changes would affect students' academic progress towards graduation. In a March 15th letter to the state, the division's senior director for learning support and special education services confirmed the allegations and provided a plan to make things right. The steps included holding meetings to determine compensatory services for students who have been recycled and requesting that education department officials train special education staff. The August report concludes that recycling happened at Booker T during the 2014-2015 school year and to a lesser extent in 2015-2016. Boone began as superintendent in December 2015 after the division ousted Samuel King, who was hired 3 years earlier. During interviews with investigators, Booker T staffers specifically referenced the recycling of students in social sciences and science courses. In history social science, investigators found 36 students in 2014-2015 moved from a class with an associated SOL exam to a course without one. That same year, 11 science students moved classes before taking their SOLs. The next year, the number of students changing classes in those subjects dropped to 1 and 3, respectively. The state also found that many of the recycled Booker T students had earned failing grades or none at all when they were moved, which meant that school officials did not have to administer SOL or assign testing statuses to those students. Wow. Investigators found 45 students whom Norfolk had inappropriately marked absent when they could have taken an SOL exam. 36 of them were either failing or had no course grade, according to the report. The state cited an email sent to Booker T guidance counselors near the end of the first semester of the 2014-2015 school year, listing which students to move. The report did not reveal the message's source. More are coming, the email said. If you notice a check beside a student's name, the change has already been made. The scheduled changes had consequences. In some cases, teachers who were supposed to instruct second semester SOL courses had their assignments changed to meet the increased demand for non-SOL courses, the report said. Staff reported that in some cases, these additional changes were disruptive to the culture of existing classroom, investigators wrote. Guidance counselors told the state the scheduling changes were leaving students short of the full standard credits necessary to meet graduation requirements. Booker T employees told investigators that ensuring students had the necessary credits was particularly difficult this past school year because of partial course credits earned in previous years. Boone said Tuesday she has no knowledge that recycling prevented students from graduating on time. Graduation rates are typically released in early fall. She told the board Wednesday that the division plans to stop awarding half credits at the end of semesters beginning in 2018-2019. By September 29, the division must prove to the Education Department that all students who should have taken SOL tests during the 2016-2017 school year have done so. Officials must also create an add-drop policy that aligns with state requirements and train staff on policies and expectations for accounting for students. Any school that violates state regulations may face sanctions, including having its accreditation withheld or denied. In extreme cases, the state may withhold funding. An Education Department spokesman, however, said the state's priority is to work with the division to ensure it follows proper procedures. I normally would not read all of that article except for the last 2 paragraphs. But do you understand what took place there? Do you understand what took place? So in order to boost test scores to get full accreditation, this school district removed students who were supposed to take the test from courses where they would have been required to take the test because they were afraid that their test scores would not allow them to get full accreditation. You see, even teachers know when something is rotten and stinks because they will tell. And as the article explained, you had teachers who were contacting this newspaper organization to let them know about what was going on and to let them know that students were negatively impacted because they didn't get the chance to meet their graduation requirements. That's outrageous. Norfolk Public Schools, what's really going on? What is going on here? And see, this is why I am so passionate about making sure that parents are completely informed about what is going on in their schools and their school districts. We cannot continue to take a passive role when things like this are going on, when students are being negatively impacted. Their graduation is being negatively impacted because of the school district trying to get full accreditation without them because they don't think they're going to be able to pass the test. That's just simply absurd. It's simply absurd. And there's so much that I could say about that. There's so much that I could say about that, because if I go back and I look at the demographics of Booker T. Washington High School, I know without even looking at them, although I did look at them eventually, that it's a predominantly African American school, because it's called Booker T. Washington. Now, that's not to say that there aren't any predominantly Latino or white schools that may be called Booker T. Washington. That's not to say that. But just understanding the demographics of Norfolk Public Schools, where the majority of the students are African American, I have a pretty good guess that Booker T. Washington is a predominantly African American school district. And it's just enough already. Enough already. When you talk about wanting to close the achievement gap, you can't put measures in place and do things underhanded and think that's what you're going to get. I don't know Norfolk Public Schools. I certainly wasn't looking for that negative interaction between parents and the community, but so there it is. I also found another article. I'm not going to go too deeply into this because I did spend so much time talking about the recycling because it was so outrageous. But there is another article also about Norfolk Public Schools, stating that Norfolk Public Schools, here we go. Let me get this set up here. The five Norfolk principals were demoted. 1 resigned, 4 to be reassigned. And I will, I'm not going to get into the deepness of this. Because I know that parents were upset about these changes. And so to them, that would be a negative interaction. I don't know why those decisions were made. I certainly wasn't privy to that. And I would like to think that the superintendent had reason to make those decisions. But when you have such a case such as Miss Sims, that is so outrageous and ridiculous, you invite people to begin to look and say, let me look into what else is going on with this school district. It's something that you need to consider when you have to make a decision. You want to think about how it's going to impact you. I just wanted to see what I could find, and that's something else that I found. And you could, look deeper into it yourself, which I encourage you to do your own investigation. So I'm doing a little bit of an investigation. I didn't, get as deep as I would, and as I could, but I was just looking to see what popped up, to just give you some idea of the types of things that you can do as well, that simply don't cost you a thing. It just costs you time. The final article that I want to point out that you again can look deeper into, is titled "Conflict Between Parent Councilman and City Attorney Leads to a Special Prosecutor." And you can look at this article because the special prosecutor is looking into a complaint against a Norfolk school principal and the Norfolk city attorney. It was filed by a parent, and it has reached the level of investigation because that principal also happens to be a Norfolk City Council person. So I just wanted to look and see if it was just an isolated incident that Norfolk Public Schools was having this negative interaction with Miss Sims and the community who has responded in their comments, and that they don't appreciate what has taken place with her. Wow. Just wow. I bring those things up not because, again, I'm trying to drag you, but because you have to look at what you are putting out, Norfolk Public Schools, what imagery you are putting out, and what people are going to perceive and believe about you. And right now, it's not looking real good. Okay? Because right now your reputation, a negative reputation is preceding you. You have to act now. This is what I would tell you as if I were consulting your school district about this situation and how you need to move forward from today. I would say to you, you have to act now to try to redeem yourselves. Because if you took just a little time looking at some of your reviews over the past 5 years from various sites such as Great Schools, Niche, your own website. If you took just a little time to look at some of the reviews over the past few years, I try not to go back any further than 5 years because a lot of times there's a lot of turnover. So 5 years is about the gauge that I give it. You'll be able to see what your community really thinks of you. And you should be concerned about what your community thinks of you, because you can't build collaboration and positive relationships. You can't have a school community if the people in your community view you as in a negative light. Now, some people love what you offer them, and I'm going to give you the truth. I have promised that I'm going to speak the truth. So I'm not here to just say all of the things are negative. There were some people who spoke very highly of you, who actually named names of staff members who they really appreciated for their help. They talked about some of your programming, after school program that their child or their children may love. So there were some people who loved what you offer. And there were plenty of likes and plenty of 4 or 5 stars. But then you also have to consider the others who had 1 star or would say, I wouldn't give you any stars if I could, or 3 stars or 2 stars. You have to also consider their perspective and what they had to say about what is not working for them. And we all know bad news travels faster than good news. Look at me. I have never been to Norfolk, Virginia in my life. I only heard about this story online because it began to trend. And you know, when something trends, it'll eventually come across you at some point. And I have to tell you, as I said, I've read several articles. I think I probably read about 10 articles from news outlets all over the world just to see if the story was the same. And it's the same story. So people all over the world are reporting on this story. I also saw at least a half a dozen stories in different languages about this incident. I strongly suggest that this is not the type of news you want if you are trying to support your vision. If you are true to what your strategic plan is about community, this is not the type of news that you want presented about you. You don't want that. Now, as to the comment about no electronic devices allowed in elementary schools, where is this presented? Or is it presented in your student and parent handbooks, or rather your student handbook? Now, if you visit Ocean View Elementary School's website, you actually don't have an electronic copy available for your parents to preview or review. Now, in 2016 and 2017, you promised that you would make a student handbook, electronic student handbook available. Now, I got to tell you, it's November 26, 2017, and first semester is almost over. So what expectation do you have that students and parents are to uphold the code of conduct when they would have to travel to the school just to see the handbook? Because you state that the handbook is available inside your schools, but isn't that kind of unrealistic for you to expect parents to come to the school if they want to see the handbook when it's so much more convenient and easy for you to put it online so they can access it anytime they want? Are you kidding me? They have to go to the school to see the handbook instead of you putting it on the line? So the first step I would say for you in gaining support from families is to make sure they have access to the materials and the information that will help them make the best decision. I don't know if Miss Sims has been up to the school to ask for the handbook. I wouldn't expect her to come to the school, or any parent for that matter, to ask for a student handbook when it should be made available online as it is in so many other school districts across the country. Okay, so the first step in gaining support from your families is to give parents and students the chance to know what they're expected to do and what they are not. Now, is there a statement in the student handbook about not allowing electronic devices in elementary school? Again, I don't know, because your handbook is not available, or otherwise I would have been able to read it and confirm it or not. So if we don't have access to your student handbook, and I would imagine that parents don't really have access to it unless they come up to the school, which again is inconvenient and unrealistic. What does your board policy say? Since it is the board policy that determines the actions that take place in school. So let's take a look at what your board policy says about the student code of conduct. Give me 1 second. Okay, now I know where to look for this information. Remember, I always talk about in the Reimagine Schools about investigating. I did a whole video about that, investigating, learning more about all things schooling. The Reimagine Schools is trying to build up the knowledge level of parents so that they can be better advocates for their children and for all children. But we're also working with school districts to prevent issues such as this that undermine the collaborative parent-teacher relationship, which sustains the so-called achievement gap. Now, looking on your website, I see that you speak a lot about your desire to close this black and white achievement gap, Norfolk Public Schools, but I don't know how you cannot see that this present incident, you can't see that this present incident isn't helping you move in that direction. You really have turned off a lot of people in your community with this act. Again, I really plead with you to go online and read the comments for yourself to confirm what I'm saying is true. Because you got to think about what happens when you need the community support for a tax levy or a major initiative that you would like to have their support from, and they're reflecting on this incident. You might find that their support is less than stellar, and they're going to attribute it, you will attribute it to maybe apathy when it has more to do with your treatment of them, as in this case. So you have to think about that. You have to respond with wisdom and decision making at the moment of rigor, at the moment of origin, and for the future. Now, again, this information that you're looking at on your screen, I know how to look for this information. Most parents, though, and community members, they don't. And so that's, again, the purpose of a student parent handbook. So you don't have to look for policy, because the policy of the Board of Education is what should be reflected in the student handbook. So here's a little example of digging deeper, if you will, and investigating. So I'm on the Board of Education policy page. I am looking here, let's see, for I want to point out to you, sorry, I'm looking on the screen. I want to point out to you the date, because, you want the information to be accurate. Let's see here. We're going to get to the date here in just a second, but just take a look. I want you to recognize that this is not something that has been created by me. You can clearly see on the screen where it says book, Norfolk City School Board policy. It even has the address, 800 East City Hall Avenue, Norfolk, Virginia, for the Board of Education. But take a look where it says status, and you see the word active. You see the word active next to it. Okay, that means that this policy is in action. It's working. Okay, now if we go down, you will see a date, and the date says that this particular policy, which is on the standards of student conduct, was last revised on October 18th, 2017. And it was last reviewed on October 4th, 2017. So that means it's very, very recent and it's up to date. It is what is in place for the district. Now, before I go on to that, I just have to say this before I forget. Again, I said that I went to the student resources page to try to find an active and uploaded student handbook for any of your elementary schools. And what I discovered was that the student resource page is the same for all of your schools. So there's no handbook online available at any of your schools. And if I'm wrong about that, please correct me. But I didn't see that information available on any page. It's just because it's the same page. So I finally figured that out. It actually says copies of the 2016-2017 NPS, which stands, of course, for Norfolk Public Schools, student handbook, including standards of student conduct, are available for parents, guardians, and students at all of our elementary, middle, and high schools. The school division is currently working to publish a revised electronic version of this document that will be posted on the Norfolk Public School website on a future date. Again, I pointed out that was in 2016-2017 school year, which is last year, and it's still not up. So you have to ask yourself, how can parents and students know what's expected of them when they don't have access to the handbook that's supposed to tell them that? I also noticed on that page, and you can see it as well, that the academic calendar is out of date. It's also stated in 2016-2017. I did click on it, and it is indeed the academic calendar for last year. I also noticed on that same page that the course description guide is also out of date, 2016-2017, and it's only for the high school. I was looking at this again on the Ocean View Elementary School site. So I think that in addition to updating your course description guide for this school year, 2017-2018, it probably is going to be a good idea for you to include a course description guide for elementary school parents and students so that they also are aware of the expectations in terms of academics for your students. Again, I'm not on here to slam you. I'm not coming to try to make you look bad. I'm pointing out to you the things that I'm sure that your parents have noticed. And if no one's noticed that, I'm surprised that no one has said anything about that because it stood out to me pretty clearly. I don't know why no one in the school district didn't notice this information on your website is out of date. And the question becomes, who is the communication person in your district? And that's something that I think that they may be responsible for. So someone needs to have a conversation with that person so that that information can be updated right away. Okay. But getting back, I just wanted to make sure I said that because I didn't want to let that go so that that information could continue to be out of date on your website. So you're welcome. Okay. So now let's take a look again at the Board of Education policy on standards of student conduct. Again, you can see that this policy belongs to the Norfolk City School Board, and it hasn't been tampered with by me. It is in active status. It was last revised on October 18, 2017, and the date of last review is October 4th, 2017. So let's take a look at the statement about the standards of student conduct. I want to read that. That's the first line before the actual student code of conduct is listed. And it says, the following are standards of student conduct established by the school board for all students. The consequences of any act are determined on the basis of the facts presented in each situation and the reasonable discretion of the board, its designated committee, and the appropriate school officials. Now let's take a look at the two standards that are relevant to Ms. Sims' case, and that will be bullying and communication devices. Okay, let me just get to that page. Let's look at the bullying first. Now, Ms. Sims stated that she had not heard. She's alleging that she got no response via phone or email from the school administration. I am not aware or sure if she went up to the school, because that information was not presented in any of the news stories I watched or read. So I won't try to comment on that because I don't know that information. Now, let me read what the policy for the Norfolk Public Schools says about bullying. And you can read along with me. A student, either individually or as part of a group, shall not bully others, either in person or by the use of any communication technology, including computer systems, telephones, pagers, or instant messaging systems. Prohibited conduct includes, but is not limited to, physical, verbal, or written intimidation, taunting, name-calling, and insults, and any combination of prohibited activities. Bullying means any aggressive and unwanted behavior that is intended to harm, intimidate, or humiliate the victim. It involves a real or perceived power imbalance between the aggressor or aggressors and victim, and is repeated over time or causes severe emotional trauma. Bullying includes cyberbullying. Bullying does not include ordinary teasing, horseplay, argument, or pure conflict. The principal notifies the parent of any student involved in an alleged incident of bullying of the status of any investigation within 5 school days of the allegation of bullying. Again, Ms. Sims stated that she has not heard anything from the school as of November 21st, which is what caused her to take action and matters into her own hand. Yet the Norfolk Public Schools policy is very clear. It says the principal notifies the parent of any student involved. That would be the student who is bringing the allegations and the student who's being accused. And they don't make any distinction. So the assumption is that everyone who is involved, the principal notifies the parent of any student involved in an alleged incident of bullying of the status of any investigation within 5 school days of the allegation of bullying. So within 5 school days, the school principal and or the assistant principal were supposed to notify Ms. Sims about what they had found in their investigation. And she is alleging that she never received any response for them within 5 days. Now, I hope the superintendent has launched an investigation into Ms. Sims' claim that her phone calls and emails were not returned. Ms. Sims should be able to provide dates and times to confirm this as well as the school administration. In other words, she should have emails that she can look and see what date, time she sent them, and she should have kept a phone log. And the administration should be doing the same thing. Hopefully they are. One of the reasons I was often the last staff member to leave the building at night when I was a principal and a teacher was because I was documenting parent contact for the record. And that included who I spoke to, what date and time we spoke, the requests being made by myself or the person I was speaking to, my response or their response, and any follow-up contact with a projected date. I was thorough and very detailed. If you ever read any of my contact logs, you knew exactly what the conversation was about. There was no question. I didn't leave anything out. Now, this information I documented in our student record system, and it was visible to any other teaching, counseling, and administrative staff who may also have been making a phone call so that they can see there was a pattern of contact. Okay. They could see what our efforts and we could see what each other's efforts were, I should say, and contact were for this particular student. So our information was never in dispute, but we took meticulous records and we took the time to make sure that we had that information so that we could track what our contact was with the family. Now, I think that Norfolk Public Schools should consider requiring this level of documentation to their teachers and their staff members so that in the future, missed communication should not occur under such a program. Now, let's look at what it says about communication devices, because that is, of course, the problem that has had Ms. Sims being charged with a felony. It reads, okay, wait a minute. Students may possess a beeper, cellular telephone, smartphone, tablet, personal digital assistant, PDA, or other communication device on school property. Oh, I got to say that again. Because remember, the reporters asked for a comment from the school district. So whoever told the reporter that electronic devices are not allowed at the elementary level provided false information, because it clearly says students may possess a beeper, cellular telephone, smartphone, tablet, personal digital assistant, PDA, or other communications device, on school property, including school buses, provided, now here's the glitch. The glitch, provided that the device must remain off and out of sight during instructional time unless it is being used for instructional purposes at the discretion of the student's teacher. At no time may any device be used with an unfiltered connection to the internet. The division is not liable for devices brought to school or school activities. If a student possesses or uses such a device other than as permitted in this policy, in addition to other disciplinary sanctions which may be imposed, the device may be confiscated from the student and returned only to the student's parent. There, again, is no distinction in that policy given for elementary schools. It does, however, say the devices must be turned off and not visible. But again, since there is no student handbook available, how would Ms. Sims, it's not available immediately, I should say. You would have to get that information from the school. And of course, with parents working involved, I believe Ms. Sims said she was a college student about to graduate. No parent really has the time to come up to the school district to get a handbook when it should be available online. Again, how would Ms. Sims or any parent know she could not record what was happening to her daughter? I believe they wouldn't. And if this very thing was not specifically communicated, how could the district support charges being filed against her when, if it's not in the student handbook, that if you put a digital recorder in your student's backpack and record conversation, that's a prohibition, and we may seek to file charges against you that are a felony and can get you up to 5 years in prison. I would love to see that in the handbook. You might see it now because of this incident that has taken place. But again, there is no handbook up on the district's website for any of the elementary schools, and probably not for the high schools either, because as you saw on the slide, they're still working on putting it up a whole year later and almost going into second semester. So I think that we must inform students and parents of what's prohibited and the potential outcomes of the prohibited behavior if it is done. Norfolk Public Schools should see this for what it is. This is the opportunity to educate and get input from your community. You should use this opportunity to do and be better rather than vilify a parent who may not have known she was doing something she shouldn't have through simple lack of knowledge. Again, I know how to look on your website and find policy that you have published, but most parents, most community members don't do that. They rely on the information that you provide them at the beginning of the school year, which is access to a student handbook. And that access comes through you sending it home, but because it's so cost prohibitive for you to print a handbook like other school districts around the country, it's simply put online so that you can see it anytime you want. And then you can print it out on your own if you want. You can download it and save it, and you can refer to it as often as you would like. And I would think that the Board of Education and the superintendent would take the time to find out how they could improve their policy and communications as a result of this case. I really do hope that you do that you really take some time to sit and look at everything that took place in this case and what could have been done to prevent it from getting to the point that it is right now. Now, I have to tell you that the Reimagine Schools is available to assist you should you decide to move in that direction, rather than the one that you are pursuing, which is very detrimental to you and your community, in my opinion. And I might add that this is the perfect opportunity to create a student parent handbook, because you just have a student handbook, but there are expectations that you have about parental input that you need to make sure that are included, as this example demonstrates. Now, once you put it in writing and once you've made it available to your community, then people have the responsibility to make sure that they are aware of what it is and what the consequences may be. But if you haven't provided it, then you have to take that into consideration when you're making a determination about what it is you're going to do. Because certainly, like most school districts, you want to avoid the negative perceptions of the school and the school board, because it makes you look like you're unfairly dealing with this parent, that this is unfair because it's possible she didn't even know. And again, I keep coming back to the point that you really need to take a look at some of the articles and the comments and the reviews that have been written about your school district and the schools even within the district, so that you can get a good grasp of what people think about this incident, but what people think about your schools and your school district overall. You, again, going to see some great, positive, uplifting comments, but then you also are going to see some that aren't so positive. And we have to deal with both of those if we are going to improve our schools and move forward. Okay? Now, that's my 2 cents. And while you didn't ask me for my 2 cents, I feel compelled. And I felt compelled to speak out against this particular incident, because I felt that it's wrong, and try to remove the wrong that we're talking about right now. I don't think that school districts should be in the business of prosecuting parents for things such as this, especially when there is a huge possibility that the parent, Miss Sims, was not aware of what her recording what's going on with her daughter, the consequences of what it would be, because I just can't believe that you have in your handbook that we're going to put you in jail if this is what you do. School districts don't function like that. And if they do, they're not going to be in business very long, because people are going to remove their kids from a system that they see as unjust and unfair. I honestly don't believe that you want to be unjust and unfair. Certainly the literature that you have on your website suggests that you want to work with parents and you want to develop and build positive relationships that you yourself recognize will go a long way towards helping to eradicate the achievement gap. And that's what your focus should be. So again, this is my 2 cents. I felt that Miss Sims has been unjustly charged, and I do hope that she will be released from that, and that the school district will work with her to begin to repair their relationship, because she has a daughter who attends school there, and it doesn't, and other people have children too who are watching. So you have to try to make this right, in my opinion. Okay. Now I got to tell you that I was taught, the reason why I speak about this at all is because I was taught that when you see something wrong, as a responsible human being, there's something you're supposed to do when you see something wrong. And I was taught that there are 3 things you can do. You can say in your head, "Oh, I hate that thing. I hate that thing." I'm sorry. You can say in your heart, and you of course would say it to yourself, in other words. You say in your heart, "I hate that." And that is the weakest of faith. You can speak out against that thing, or you can remove it with your hand being your efforts. And that is the best of faith. So being the person who aspires to do the best that I can do and be the best that I can be, I, of course, had to make sure that I not only spoke out against this wrong as I see it, but I did something to try to remove it with my hand. I hope that the officials at Norfolk Public Schools and Ms. Sims again get to hear this, and that they can sit down to repair their relationship and improve conditions for students and parents through their collaborative efforts. After, of course, Norfolk Public Schools requests that the charges be dropped against Ms. Sims. Now, I look forward to reading about that the charges have been dropped against Ms. Sims and that the school district, Norfolk Public Schools, supports that. I look forward to reading about that and seeing your school district thrive under those circumstances. Now, anyone who is in the Norfolk area, please make sure you reach out to Norfolk Public Schools to let them know that you also look forward to them dropping the charges against Ms. Sims. And you look forward to a spirit of renewal and true collaboration. And if anyone knows Ms. Sims, please give her some support, because it must be very stressful for her, who, as a parent who is trying to help her child, to be put in a situation where she's criminalized and vilified. And we really just cannot continue to allow that to happen when parents step in and they try to do the right thing for their children and they haven't done anything otherwise that is illegal. We shouldn't be accepting of them being vilified and criminalized this way. So please make sure that if you're in the Norfolk area, and even if you're not, they do have a phone number, they have email that you can use. Please reach out to them to let them know that you look forward to them supporting the dropping of charges against Ms. Sims, and you look forward to a spirit of renewal and true collaboration. I thank you very much for joining me. I hope I haven't went on too long, but this is a topic that really is indicative of some of the difficulties that our parents face in our urban schools. And we really have to step in to say what's wrong is wrong, and let's do something to make this right. Our reality is that we do not have the schools and the funding to build our schools, and that we're going to have to reform this system so that we have a variety of options as to how we educate our students, our children, but that all of the options that are available to us are excellent. They are supported by us. They are providing us with the results that we desire, and that we can be proud of the education that our students are receiving that will help them compete in the global world, in the global market. That is what we have to do. So we try to work and improve what we have, and we look forward to developing and building our own as well. Okay. Thank you again for joining me at the Reimagine Schools, where it is about we over me over here. We are about we over me. And I say to you again, Mbolo Modole, togetherness is power, peace. Remember, you are obligated to keep the peace.